Keeping tabs on the price of treatment. Evidence shows patients are spending more on diabetes drugs than ever before.
Trust me, I understand it. I know what it is. And when I look at these people in the streets, it breaks my heart.
Meet the workers dealing with San Diego's homeless crisis, one person at a time.
We're on board the USS Gabrielle Giffords out here in the San Diego Bay. Evening edition starts right now.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. There's a new legal development tonight for kids who enter the U.S. illegally. Today, judges with the Ninth Circuit Court ruled they cannot be detained without court hearings. The panel said immigration authorities must follow a 1997 settlement. This guaranteed court hearings for minors and set standards for their detention and established a policy in favor of their release. The judges wrote these children are held in bureaucratic limbo without the hearings. The federal government may appeal the decision. Today, San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer and city housing officials announced plans to provide housing for 3,000 people who are homeless or over the next 3 years. KPBS reporter Allison St. John says the plan will help a fraction of those who are homeless or at risk of becoming homeless.
The plan is a continuation of the city's Housing First approach, which focuses on finding people who are homeless a permanent place to live rather than putting them in transitional housing. The head of San Diego City's Housing Commission, Rick Gentry, says more than 500 affordable units have been added to the city's affordable housing inventory in the last 3 years of the Housing First plan.
We're happy today to be here to talk about the latest iteration of the Housing Commission's Housing First San Diego plan. This plan, we believe, will conservatively house an additional 3,000 residents in a permanent fashion. And we're directing, as the mayor said, some $79.7 million over the next 3 years, money in federal, city, and San Diego Commission funds. And we're looking for those to be employed in 6 different program areas.
$50 million will go to build another 500 affordable and subsidized units. However, Gentry says there's no data on how many affordable units the city is losing as older affordable housing is converted into things like luxury condos. $10 million will be for hundreds of new housing vouchers, and $6.6 million will be to provide incentives to landlords to accept those vouchers. More than 5,000 people are homeless in the city of San Diego at last count. The Housing Commission will also reserve about $3 million in a new preventive program to help 1,400 families at risk of becoming homeless to remain in their homes. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
While San Diego leaders scramble to get people off the streets and into housing, caseworkers are on the front lines, putting those plans into action. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy says the job requires patience, persistence, and a big heart.
I know I'm here for a purpose, and that is to help one homeless person at a time.
Agnes Cole is in the business of changing lives.
Well, thank you, Agnes.
You're welcome, Charles.
You've really been a lifesaver.
She's a case manager with Father Joe's Villages. It's the region's largest shelter and homeless service provider. Her job is to help people get off the streets and into permanent supportive housing, which is usually a single room, a converted motel unit, or studio apartment with on-site counseling and other services.
For me, when it comes to helping people, I take it personally.
She says it's not an easy job. Often people who need the most help refuse assistance.
When I approach them, I know they don't believe me. When I say I'm going to get you into housing for the rest of your life.
She walks them through an application process and finds a landlord who will accept them.
Since most of our clients some have evictions, some have bad credits, most of them, and things like that, we negotiate.
While waiting for a housing unit, she assesses their needs, helps them get an ID and a social security card if they need them, and looks for other funding programs they might qualify for, including food stamps and disability.
So it's working. but you have to be patient. You have to understand. You have to understand where they're coming from.
For many homeless, they're coming from years of sleeping on floors and cement, lugging all their belongings in a cart, eating in soup kitchens, struggling with disabilities and hopelessness.
And that's why I go looking for my clients tent to tent.
The mother of 3 compares the conditions on the streets of downtown to the war zone she fled 13 years ago in West Africa.
Trust me, I understand it. I know what it is. And when I look at these people in the streets, it breaks my heart.
San Diego County has seen a significant rise in its homeless population. The number of people sleeping outside in tents and under overpasses has soared 40% over the last 3 years. Nearly 1,300 people sleep along the outskirts of the East Village, where a hub of charities serve the homeless. Sidewalks are covered in encampments and trash. Public restrooms include just a handful of toilets. Some say it's a contributor to the recent hepatitis A outbreak.
It's almost like there are 2 societies when I see all that I see every day.
Colleen Gruber is also a caseworker for Father Joe's Villages, but 2 decades ago, she walked in their homeless shoes, hitchhiked across Europe while hooked on opium.
That is a monster that I'm very familiar with, and so for 27 years I lived like that. But there was this little light in my heart that was very dim, and I did my best to put it out.
Gruber got clean, went to college for a degree in social work, and now spends every day looking for a dim hope in others.
I tell them, you know, if you don't believe in yourself, believe that I believe that you can change, that your life can change.
San Diego has launched a major initiative to get 3,000 to 5,000 homeless people off the streets over the next 3 years. Rick Gentry, CEO of the San Diego Housing Commission, is one of the leaders overseeing the $80 million project.
What San Diego's got to do is to understand a transition from a small city to a true urban area with housing expansion instead of being pushed out, pushed in and up, greater density. Which itself could provide more affordability.
He says the waiting list for an affordable housing voucher is currently 7 to 10 years.
We've got 75,000 applicants for 15,000 occupied units with a turnover rate of about 100 a month. You can do the math.
Homeless people are one of the populations receiving priority right now. So are disabled, elderly, and veterans. Gentry says turning the homeless and housing crisis around will require more places for people to live and more funding to build it.
And how do you get city laws, ordinances changed to allow for easier development?
Still, Gentry says progress is being made.
The thing I don't know how to predict is what the growth and the problem is going to continue to be despite all the efforts and attentions that we're given to it.
Agnes Cole says it's overwhelming to look out onto the streets and see all the people in need. That's why she has her own strategy.
It's possible to help them, but one person at a time. One person at a time.
Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
The USS Gabrielle Giffords arrived in San Diego this morning. It's the latest ship of its kind to be based here, and families were there to greet the crew. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh was on board as it came into port.
We're on board the USS Gabrielle Giffords as she comes into harbor here in San Diego. Gabrielle Giffords is named after the Arizona congresswoman who survived an assassination attempt back in 2011. This is one of the most high-tech ships in the Navy, and the crew is happy to be home. The crew, including Fire Control Officer First Class Samuel Johnson, met Giffords in Texas for the dedication.
It was really neat to meet someone who went through something like that and showed all that strength and courage to come back to where she is now. I thought it was pretty awesome.
Families waited on the dock for the reunion. Before it can be deployed, the Giffords will undergo tests in its new home port. The Navy has been revamping the LCS program. They're changing the way the crews are configured. The Navy is also going to install new missiles so the ship can more easily protect itself. The Littoral Combat Ship is one of the newest ships in the Navy. Some of the things that make it different, it has a propulsion system that relies on water jets instead of a rudder and propeller. Also, the crew size, it's a lot smaller than a ship its size. Normally about 300 people would man this ship, but this only has a crew of 73 people. But that's 73 people who are happy to be home in San Diego. Reporting from San Diego Bay, Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
In 2 years, Volvo will stop producing gas-only powered vehicles. The company says starting in 2019, all of their new cars will be either hybrid or fully electric. Volvo is the first major automaker to abandon the internal combustion engine. CEO Håkan Samuelsson says the move was dictated by consumer demand. Volvo is based in Sweden but is owned by a Chinese firm. Caltrans announced a plan today to use money collected from the recently approved gas tax to make major repairs to roads, bridges, and across the state. $19 billion of tax funds will go to repair about a third of the state's roads. About 500 bridges will be repaired or replaced, along with thousands of traffic cameras and road sensors. Caltrans officials say these repairs should have been done decades ago.
We're right now identifying projects that we can expedite, projects we have on the books already that were planned for the future that we're going to be able to bring up now thanks to the promise of SB1 funding. And we're also going to be ramping up on other pavement projects. So you can expect smoother pavement in areas. You can expect your bridges to be in very good condition over the next 10 years. We're going to be working very hard on our infrastructure to get it back up to speed. This is our chance really to catch up on years of unfunded major maintenance items.
Caltrans officials say local counties and cities will receive $31 billion to fund their own road and infrastructure projects. It's well documented medications are getting more expensive, but a new report shows the sales of diabetes drugs in particular have been astronomical. Cheryl Clark with our media partner iNewsSource has more in this week's News and Numbers.
Quintilli's IMS is a national company that collects and analyzes pharmaceutical information, and it looked at drug pricing data for more than 100 diabetes medications over a recent 5-year period. And it found skyrocketing numbers. Some of the best-selling drugs, including insulin, have seen some of the biggest increases. For example, dollar sales of Lantus Solastar pens have increased 525% between 2009 and 2014. This is important because some 29 million people take drugs to control their blood sugar, a market that Quintilli's IMS estimated at $51.5 billion last year. I'm Cheryl Clark with iNewsSource.
iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. San Diego's lifeguards were busy over the July 4th holiday, rescuing nearly 550 people over the long weekend. During the past days, the city's beaches attracted almost 600,000 people, leading to about 300 saving operations and around 250 medical aid calls. A majority of these incidents happened at Pacific and Wind and Sea beaches. And while things may be settling down at the beaches, activities at the county's animal shelters is ramping up. July 5th is typically one of their busiest days as staff members work to return scared pets who bolted during the fireworks. The county says 45 dogs were taken to shelters between 7 last night and noon today. If you're missing a pet, you can check the Lost and Found page at sddac.com or check in with the county's 3 shelters. The weather on the coast is cool and breezy, but things are heating up inland. Erin Calandra has tonight's forecast.
We're seeing some thunderstorms in places inland in the deserts and also in the mountains. So Mount Laguna, Borrego Springs, right around dinner time, some thunderstorms are going to fire up. Some rain is expected. Not really along the coast, though. Very spotty activity inland and also along the coast. This is the last couple of hours. So we're actually going to get some weather around here today. This is a wider look. We're seeing some dry thunderstorms along Los Angeles, which means thunder and lightning lightning, but no rain. That's a bit unusual for this time of year. Let's take a look at tonight. 66 degrees. Of course, we're going to have that fog. It's going to last until about lunchtime, and then it's going to break up and we'll have some sunshine. So for tonight, across the coast, especially those cloudier conditions, Oceanside 63, Poway 63, Alpine 62. Very comfortable for sleeping conditions. Borrego Springs are at 79 with mainly clear skies, and Mount Laguna just a couple clouds passing through, temperatures in the 60s. On Thursday, well, we have this high pressure in place, which means we're seeing record challenging and record breaking temperatures again here in the Southwest. Even in Los Angeles, it's going to be in the 90s the next couple days, so very warm conditions. Here in San Diego, though, we're at 78 degrees tomorrow in Oceanside, San Diego 77. Borrego Springs, we're still in the triple digits. And in the mountains here, we're going to see some showers continue. 85 degrees, maybe a bit of thunder and lightning as well for tomorrow. As we move on here for the 5-day along the coast, really great conditions. Low clouds, some fog, and then some sunshine as usual. On Saturday, if you're heading to the beach, it's going to be a nice day for it. 86 degrees with lots of sunshine. Sunday, another nice beach day, 81 degrees. As we move inland, well, it is going to be hot. Look at Saturday, record challenging temperatures, very hot. Check on your elderly neighbors for sure. Make sure everyone's doing okay. 97 degrees here for the temperature. In the mountains, we're in the 80s, so much cooler and pleasant. Thursday, again, some stray thunderstorms passing through. And in the deserts, we are in the triple digits every single day with plenty of sun. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra.
A global debate over a terminally ill baby in Britain have the Pope and President Trump weighing in. 11-month-old Charlie Gard has a rare genetic condition. It left him blind, deaf, and he can't breathe on his own. The London hospital that's treating Charlie has asked permission to remove him from life support. His parents want to try an experimental treatment in the U.S. Several courts have sided with the London hospital. President Trump announced his support for the parents on Twitter, saying the U.S. would be happy to help as well. The Pope also voiced his support for the family, and the Vatican Children's Hospital has offered to treat the baby. There's new questions today about this hospital following an AP investigation. AP reporter Haven Daly explains the issues that are raising concerns about the hospital's motives.
When First Lady Melania Trump visited Pope Francis in May, she took the time to visit Bambino Gesù, Baby Jesus in English, a pediatric hospital owned by the Vatican. The hospital is considered one of the best in all of Italy. Thousands of patients are treated successfully at what's known as the Pope's Hospital. But it wasn't always like that. Last Christmas, Pope Francis urged caregivers at the hospital not to fall prey to corruption.
Bambino Gesù has had a history that hasn't always been good. Many times good, but sometimes not so good. It's the temptation towards uniformity, to transform a good thing like a children's hospital into a business.
In 2014, Colleen McMahon was part of a Vatican-authorized task force, which also included Bambino Gesù doctors, nurses, and administrators. They conducted a secret month-long investigation and found that the hospital had become more focused on making money than caring for children.
It was more of a profit-centered approach versus a patient-centered approach.
The task force found that to speed up the surgery schedule and therefore increase the rate of operations, doctors sometimes brought children out of anesthesia early, causing them to move and tear up, and then wheeled in more patients from a pre-op room lined with gurneys. The Associated Press also conducted its own investigation based on hundreds of hours of interviews, civil lawsuits, union complaints, and reviews of internal Vatican and hospital emails. In response to the AP, the hospital flatly denied the profit over patient findings and said the information provided to the Vatican and AP was either false, seriously unfounded and out of date by 2 years, clinically implausible, and defamatory on a moral and ethical level. The Vatican later ordered a second investigation, which took just 3 days compared to the initial months-long one. It was led by Sister Carol Kean of the Catholic Health Association and found there was little evidence to support the continued accusations of medical wrongdoing.
Can I say they've never made a mistake? Absolutely not. Can I say that that they're absolutely perfect? No, I can't say that. But can I say that that is a hospital that gives exceptional care to children? Absolutely and positively, yes.
But there were other worrying issues. 8 children died during a nearly 2-year outbreak of a drug-resistant bacteria in the cancer ward. And overcrowding was a problem when Federica Bianca brought her infant son to the emergency room with breathing problems. 2 days later, he came down with an infectious virus called rotavirus, which he later gave to his twin brother.
Tutte le salette in cui i bambini erano curati erano strapiene.
All the rooms where the children were treated were overcrowded. I saw lots of people waiting in the corridors. In short, I found a non-ideal situation. I saw a hospital in difficulty, but I didn't pay too much attention to this because it had such a good reputation.
If a child is infected, the child has to be separated, isolated in a way that other children not come in not contaminated, or not use the same facilities.
A Bambino Gesù spokesman said that the institution had successfully brought rates of hospital-acquired infections under international and national benchmarks in recent years. The rate fell from 7.6% in 2007 to an estimated 1.8% last year. The twins recovered, but other patients took legal action against the hospital after something went wrong. Florinda Galasso was partially paralyzed after suffering a stroke during open-heart surgery at Bambino Gesù. She said she was never told she might have such a complication. She sued the hospital for lack of informed consent and appealed for more than the €50,000 compensation she was awarded. She recently lost that appeal.
I need security for my future. They should reimburse me just because they ruined my life.
In this world where you can make so much business off healthcare, they deceive so many people with the industry of sickness. Bambino Gesù must know to say no. No.
Haven Daily, Associated Press.
NPR took a field trip to the largest green roof in New York City. Producer Beck Harlan and Kara Frame imagine what the city could be like if all of its roof space was green.
This is the largest green roof in New York City. It's in the middle of bustling Manhattan, on top of the Javits Convention Center, a behemoth of a building with a 6-block footprint. But the roof hasn't always been green. Before 2014, it was totally barren. Now, just a few years later, when people walk out onto the roof, they say things like,
"Amazing, that's great, I didn't expect this, what a surprise."
But besides the great reactions, there are practical benefits.
We have 300,000 bees. We've seen 25 different species of birds on the roof. We reduced the temperature up here by about 6 degrees Fahrenheit. And we also save about 7 million gallons of stormwater runoff that's absorbed in the soil and the plants that are on our roof. We've been able to reduce our energy consumption by about 26%, and that translated for us last year into a saving of about $3 million.
That is impressive. How does one green roof get so much done? And what are all of the not green roofs in New York City doing with their lives? First, let's see how much roof space actually exists.
You know, they are a major part of urban landscapes. The round number that most of us think exists is about 1 billion square feet. 1 billion with a B.
That's like 22 times the size of Central Park in roofs. And in most cities, what isn't roof is another impermeable surface, like road, sidewalk, or parking lot. And these surfaces create a lot of problems for cities that green roofs can actually help solve. Let's take a look at 3 of these issues. The first is stormwater runoff.
Rainwater goes into pipes. It combines with what's called sanitary water. When there's too much rainwater, which happens hundreds of times a year around Manhattan, the wastewater treatment facilities shut down, and these valves just let the water just, shunt out into the rivers. And, it's got human sewage. It's the biggest source of pathogens to the Manhattan Island. With green roofs, that water, instead of going into the drains and polluting the environment, ends up just evaporating to the atmosphere through the leaves of these plants.
And then there's what scientists call the heat island effect. which basically means that cities are significantly warmer than the surrounding areas.
Well, I've seen asphalt roofs get up easily 170, 180 degrees Fahrenheit in the strong sunlight. They absorb about 90 to 95% of the sunlight. Green roofs, by comparison, are close to air temperatures.
Another problem green roofs can help solve is habitat loss. Cities can shrink or destroy the green space that's crucial for certain plants and animals to survive.
Currently, a lot of species might occur in smaller parks throughout the city that are relatively unconnected, but having high densities of green roofs would allow those patches to be more connected, letting, for example, butterflies travel from patch to patch with lots of stepping stones of green roofs in between.
And these are just 3 of the problems green roofs can help solve. But to really put a dent in any of these issues, cities would have to implement green roofs at a large scale. Stuart Gaffin, the research scientist you heard from earlier, estimates that if all of New York City's 1 billion square feet of roof space were greened, those green roofs could lower the city's temperature by nearly 2 degrees Fahrenheit and absorb over 10 billion gallons of stormwater each year. As cities continue to grow, all that empty roof space starts to look more and more like an opportunity, an untapped resource, a future ecosystem of problem-solving meadows in the sky.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.